Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Like I said, we've got a wonderful guest joining us also from Canada. Garnet Schulhauser, as I said, is an author. Garnet is a retired attorney or lawyer and lives in Victoria on Vancouver Island in Canada as well. He had a life-changing event one day while he was still practicing law when he was confronted on the street by a homeless man named Albert, who actually was a spirit guide in disguise. This seemingly chance encounter launched a provocative dialogue with Albert, who disclosed startling new truths about life's big questions, including the true nature of our eternal souls, the cycle of reincarnation, and how we create our own reality through free will choices. And Garnet is here to talk to us about this wonderful experience here today. Welcome to the show, Garnet Schulhauser. It's so nice to have you here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Bernard. I'm delighted to be part of your show.
Oh, thank you. So this must have been a very interesting experience for you, Garnet. I don't know. I didn't do enough research to know what your thought process as before all this, what your religious beliefs were, what your idea of the paranormal might have been prior. But as an attorney, to see this being who showed themselves to you as a homeless man, how was that? Can you share that moment with us a little
Sure.
bit?
Yeah, certainly, I'd be happy to. But just let me back up a bit to give you a bit of background so you can understand where I was coming from before I met Albert. I was raised in a very religious Roman Catholic family. I was an altar boy for many years. We followed all the rules and beliefs of the church. Went to church every Sunday and a lot of times in between. And it was a very sort of strict religious upbringing. But when I sort of hit my 20s and my 30s, I started to question a lot of the beliefs of the Catholic Church. And I rejected a lot of them because it didn't make a lot of sense to me. And so then from my 30s onwards, I was sort of in no man's land. I had rejected a lot of what the Catholic Church had taught me. And I was searching for a new paradigm to latch onto, a new set of beliefs that I could sort of feel were true and good, and something that I could just latch onto. And throughout that period, I was constantly asking myself the eternal life questions that everyone gets to once in a while, such as who am I, why am I here, what is my life's purpose, and what happens to me when I die. And so then, after I graduated from high school, went to university, graduated out of law school, went to Calgary to practice law, where I practiced corporate law for over 34 years with two large blue chip law firms. And so one day in 2007, and this is after I've been practicing law for about 33 years, and I was very much of a straight-laced, button-down corporate lawyer who never talked about spirituality or religion or any of those things at all. And then one day my life was transformed, literally. I was walking down the street one sunny afternoon in May with my head in the clouds, sort of enjoying the fresh air. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a homeless man just sort of jumps in front of me. Now, he looked very much like many homeless people I'd seen on that street before. He had long, stringy hair and a scraggly beard and dirty, slept-in clothes. Instead of going around him, as I typically would when I encountered these people, I just stood there because there was something very different about him. His eyes, his sparkling, dazzling blue eyes that shone like sort of two little blue stars. I'd never seen anything quite so radiant in terms of eyes before. And so I stood there And his gaze was doing two things to me, Bernard. The first thing was I felt like he was penetrating deep into the depths of my soul, and that he somehow, even though we had never met before, I felt he somehow knew everything about me, everything I'd ever said or done, everything, all my hopes and aspirations, my fears and anxieties, my deepest and darkest secrets. I just sensed that he knew everything about me. But I didn't feel violated because at the same time, his gaze was sending me this gush of pure, unconditional love that was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security. It was a sense of well-being I'd never ever had before. And so I stood there like a deer caught in the headlights. I was just transfixed by the gaze from this man. And I think I was in a time warp. I had no idea how long I stood there. I didn't care how long I stood there. I could have stood there forever, enjoying the wonderful wave of love from this man. And then he broke the spell finally by saying to me, "Why are you here?" Then he promptly disappeared into a nearby store. So when I finally collected my wits, I went into the store to try to find him. He was nowhere to be seen in the store. I went back out onto the street and I walked up and down for 15 or 20 minutes trying to spot him, but he had seemingly disappeared into thin air. Couldn't find him anywhere. So I went back to my office, and that night I resolved that I really had to find out more about this very unusual man, and I had to go back and try to find him. So the very next day, same time, same street, I went back to try to find this homeless man. And after walking up and down for 15 or 20 minutes through several blocks, I finally spotted him sitting all alone on a bench. And so I went up to him and I said, "Who are you? And why did you stop me the other day?" And he said, "I'm a soul just like you, and I'm here to answer your questions and help you on your journey." Now, that should have been enough, but being a lawyer, I have a skeptical mind, and I certainly did back then. I always question things, Bernard. And so my skepticism kicked in, and I said to him, "Why do you think you could help me when you can't even help yourself? Because you look like you've been sleeping on the street for weeks, and you smell like a dead fish." Well, he just gave me a big smile, Bernard, and he said, "Looks can be deceiving because you look like you're a very, very successful lawyer with everything under control. But we both know that's just a facade." He said, "If you want, you can turn around, go back to your office, and see if you can find the answers you've been seeking in all those emails waiting for you on your computer, or you can sit down and have a chat with me." So luckily, my intuition kicked in and said, this was a very unusual man, a very special man, and I had to sit down and talk to him. I mean, what did I have to lose? A half an hour of my day? No big deal. So I sat down and we began a dialogue that went off and on over several months, in which I asked him a lot of questions. He gave me answers. And I found out early on that his name was Albert. And he told me he was really one of my spirit guides in disguise. And so, and he also told me that I was the only one who could see him in physical form as the homeless man. So he said that had people been walking by the bench that day, they would have seen me sitting by myself. They would not have seen him.
Oh, wow.
So it was very interesting. And so I said to him, "Well, why?" And so after the first 3 visits, he showed up as the homeless man. And then after that, he was just a voice in my head, like we would communicate by telepathy. And I said to him, "Why did you show up as the homeless man initially? What was the reason for that?" And he said, "I wanted to introduce you gradually into our conversation, because had I just started talking to you as a voice in your head, you likely would have thought you were losing your mind."
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, that makes sense, Albert." And so he said, "I eased you into the conversation, and then after I no longer needed to appear to you as a physical person, because you would recognize my voice, then we could just communicate by telepathy." And that's how the rest of our conversation carried on. And so it was an amazing conversation. He was an amazing person, still is. I still have contact with him. And he gave me a lot of revelations that he said was not just for my benefit, but he wanted me to write a book about them so that everyone else in the world could understand what he was telling me and be privy to his revelations.
Oh, wonderful. Amazing. Amazing. Now, when he said he was a spirit guide, did he say he was your spirit guide, or is he a spirit guide for other people as well?
Well, he said he was my spirit, one of my spirit guides. He didn't say if he wasn't also spirit guide for other people. He could be. He would. In fact, I've asked him that question, and he just declined to answer. He said it wasn't important for me to know that, but he said he was one of my spirit guides. He had been one of them since my birth. And of course, as you know, we all have spirit guides, 3 or 4 or whatever number, and they do change as our life progresses because our needs change, and we need different kinds of coaches, in different segments of our life. But Albert said he's been with me from day one. Hopefully, he'll be with me throughout the rest of the period because he's such a wonderful guy. And I'm just delighted that he is one of my spirit guides.
Right, right. I can relate to that with my own guides as well. Tell me, Garnet, what did you find was probably the most difficult bit of information that he gave you that was hardest to swallow, I guess? Compared to your old beliefs versus to what he was sharing with you?
Well, the hardest to swallow probably was, of course, I was raised as a Catholic, and they taught us that God was a supreme being who had omnipotent power, controlled things in our lives. And so if good things happened to you, it's because God was smiling on you. If bad things happened to you, it was God wanted to punish you for whatever reason. And so the way to sort of get your way through life was to pray to God, pay proper homage to God, and then maybe good things would happen to you, and you could avoid bad things. Well, Albert says God, or he refers to God as the source, and some people refer to him as the creator. He says that's totally wrong. That's not the picture of the source. The source is the sum total of everything in the universe. The source is not sort of a separate entity sitting up in the sky in a gold throne. The source is sort of everything in the universe. We are all part of the source, and we're connected to the source, and we're connected to each other and to everything else in the universe. So, but the startling thing was, he says the source does not manipulate or control events on our planet or anywhere else. And the source does not make rules for us to follow. So unlike the Catholic Church saying to me, here's a whole big long list of rules that came from God. You have to follow these rules. And if you don't, you're going to make God unhappy. And if you don't make amends, he will punish you after you die by sending you to an awful place called hell. Albert says there's no truth to that. Source doesn't make rules. And there is no punishment in the afterlife. There's no judgment. There is no hell. So that no matter what you do on this planet, no matter how many mistakes you make or how many wrong turns you take, you always end up back on the spirit side where you came from before you were born in this incarnation. And so that was like a major sort of 180 degrees from what I was taught as a child. But as he was telling me this, it all sort of rang true, Bernard. It really felt like, yeah, that makes sense. And I understand how things work now. And it makes a lot more sense to me than what I was taught as a child. That was sort of the most startling revelation.
Yes, and I feel that that's probably one of the most difficult to get past when you're exploring this type of information, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely, because it was, as I say, 180 degrees from what I was taught as a child. But it really didn't make sense when I fit it together with everything else that he told me. And the other sort of part of that, which according to the Catholic Church, was that God put me here on this earth for his own reasons, which we were not to know, and we were supposed to sort of live out our lives with free will and try to do what God intended us to do, even though we weren't fully sure of what that meant. And Albert says, well, the reason we came here and incarnated was not because God or the source told us to come here or put us here. It was because we freely chose, when we were a soul on the spirit side, we freely chose to incarnate ourselves. And we did that so we could learn and experience things on the planet Earth that we needed for our evolution as souls. And before we were born, we all prepared a life plan. And in the life plan, we set out the major circumstances of our proposed new lives. Things like where we'd be born, the first language we'd learn, the identity of our parents and siblings and friends and coworkers and spouses. We set that out all beforehand. And the other souls who would play a major part in our life, like our parents and siblings and friends, they all agreed beforehand, before you incarnated, to be a part of your life, and you agreed to be part of theirs. So it was all, the major points were all pre-planned. But once we were born, we are not allowed to remember what's in our life plan, or even that we have a life plan. And because we have free will to take actions and make decisions, we are sort of very often stumbling along blindly because we're not quite sure where we should be going, and we often stray off the course we have proposed for ourselves, We take many wrong turns, but Albert said, doesn't matter how many wrong turns you make, everything you experience in your life on earth adds to your wisdom and to your knowledge. And you can never go wrong or become lost, because at the end of the day, you'll always end up back in the spirit side. So it's very much of a, why am I here? I put myself here. And so if anyone out there is feeling like they're a victim, like life has been dealing a harsh set of hands to them, up until now, or right now in the present, and you wonder why the universe is being cruel to them or why God is being cruel to them, the short answer is that's not true. The universe isn't doing anything to you. God isn't doing anything to you. You put yourself in this life to learn and experience things. And so if you recognize that, you can never feel that you're the victim. You always realize that you're here to learn and experience things. And no matter how often things seem, at the end of the day, it will add to your knowledge. And when you perish, and when your physical body dies, you'll go back to a wonderful place on the spirit side.
Right. And with that, does he talk about what it's like on the other side when you pass away? What happens?
Well, when you pass away, he said, our physical death is actually, he said, quite pleasant. It's not traumatic. It's not, you're not anxious. You're not in pain, because your soul actually leaves your body, moments before your physical body dies. So you don't suffer from the pain or anxiety or anything else. So he said, if your physical body dies in a car crash, for example, your soul will actually leave your body, moments before the impact. So you won't feel any pain or any anxiety or any distress, and you'll actually be, hovering above the scene, watching the final moments like you're watching a 3D movie. So he said it's really quite pleasant. And then when your physical body dies, your spirit guides will take you by the hand, basically take you in a transition over to the spirit side, where initially you'll be met by a welcoming party of the souls who you dearly loved and were closest to during your life. For example, if your parents had passed away, they'll be there. Your grandparents, aunts and uncles, and even some of your favorite pets will be there to greet you. And that's all designed to make you feel warm and welcome and comfortable when you make the transition over to the spirit side, because in some cases, leaving your physical body can be in very traumatic circumstances, and you need sort of all the comfort you can get once you get back to the spirit side, so that you realize that you're now in a good place. And the spirit side is a wonderful place. There are no negative emotions. There's no pain. There's no suffering. You don't have to eat or drink or sleep. You're just like a being of energy, and you're surrounded by unconditional love. Everyone loves everyone else unconditionally, and it's a wonderful place to be. That is our true home, Bernard. That's where that is our home. And these sojourns we have on earth are just temporary forays out of the comfort of the spirit zone to earth in order to learn and experience things. And we do that by our own free choice. But the spirit side is really our true home.
I couldn't agree with you more in my studies and my experience on all of this. And not to sound facetious or to be funny, but I can't help but think, why would I want to keep coming back here?
I understand that. I've asked myself that question in Albert too, and he says it's hard for a human to understand that now, because any human you talk to, they'd say, why would I ever want to come back? Because Earth is a tough school. It's no walk in the park. And you can say from here, our perspective, why would I ever want to come back? I hope when I finish this life that I won't come back. But Albert says once you get back there, your perspective is totally different, and you realize that your sojourn on Earth is a very brief moment in time compared to what happens on the spirit side, where there is no linear time. And so you can say right now, I don't want to come back, but when you die and you can pass over, your view could very well be totally different.
Oh yes, absolutely, and I was saying that half jokingly because I will say that in my experience, and I've been connected with my spirit for probably most of my life, is I remember very much wanting to experience everything on the earth. I wanted to experience roller coasters and love and vacation, and I literally had a calling to want to experience what it was like to be human. So I can see from a spiritual standpoint why we would want to come back here to fall in love, to eat chocolate cake, or to ride a roller coaster. You know what I'm saying? Things like that, I'm sure. Does he talk about these types of things?
Oh, absolutely. I totally understand what you're saying, and you're fortunate compared to most people in that you do recall some of your thoughts before you were born about why you wanted to come here. Most of us don't, and that's very deliberate, just because it makes it a more difficult school. And Albert says the reason we don't remember what we put in our life plan or where we came from was because it would be too easy here on earth. If you knew what you had planned out for yourself, because it would be like your teacher giving you the questions and answers to a final exam before the exam. Right. There'd be no point in writing the exam. And so our forgetfulness of our life plan and where we came from is part of the challenge. So you're actually very fortunate to remember some aspects of it, but that's exactly some of the reasons why we come here. We want to experience love. We want to experience, unfortunately, the negative emotions like hate and anger. Right. We want to, experience eating chocolate cake and walking through the waves on the, in the ocean and kicking up our feet and walking through the breeze and smelling the flowers in the forest. We want to experience all that, and of course, there's a whole myriad of other things we want to experience. But those are some of the things that are available on Earth, which we can't physically experience on the spirit side.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my next question. And we only have about 5 minutes. It's going to probably be a heavy question we might have to carry through after the commercial. But in reference to, I know in the book he talks about, there's a whole chapter on dancing on a stamp, actually, the first book, talking about overcoming evil. Is there evil on the other side, and why does he say why there's evil on this planet or this realm, this dimensional realm of consciousness?
Yeah, first of all, there's no evil on the spirit side. There's nothing negative, no evil at all. There are no evil spirits. Everyone is a kind, loving being of energy. Why is there evil on Earth? Well, 2 reasons. First of all, the Earth has harsh physical conditions. So we have extreme heat and cold. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. All the things that can make life physically uncomfortable. And that's not really evil, but it makes life tough to endure. So part of it is the physical conditions, but the big part of it is the negative emotions, and part of that stems from how we react to the harsh physical conditions and how we react to the people who interact with us. And so most of the evil is caused by negative emotions that get out of control, like fear, anger, hate, greed, and so on. And that's what causes most of the harm, most of the evil that exists on our planet. And not just a matter of having our free will run amok for some of us. We all do it at times. For some of us, it's more major. Some people commit murders, and for the rest of us, maybe it's minor things like hurting somebody's feelings in a conversation. But it happens to all of us, and it's just a matter of not being able to control our negative emotions. So that's where evil originates on our planet.
Right. I guess. Well, again, going back to being able to experience life as a human being is that feeling of separateness with the whole, which creates that divisive polarity of up and down, black and white, hot and cold, good and evil, I would think.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, it's just part of life on Earth, and we know that beforehand before we come here. So that's part of the reason we want to come, because not just to enjoy the good things, we actually want to feel, the negative emotions, feel what it's like to be the subject of abuse or hatred or crimes, and we want to be able to test ourselves to see if we can control our emotions so that we don't engage in reciprocal acts of violence and anger, and so it's all a big test for us, and we put ourselves here deliberately to see if we can pass.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In reference to the idea of, well, I'll call it the Christian construct of the devil, the almighty Satan or Lucifer or whatever that pulls the strings and makes us do these horrible things and is waiting for us to take us into a burning eternal fire. What did he have to say about something like that?
Oh, he said that there is no devil, there is no Satan or Lucifer. He said that's a construct of of a lot of religions, including the Christian church early on. And he said they did that as a means to help them control the masses through well, basically through fear, guilt and fear. And so, they could make people do what they wanted and follow the rules that they constructed, which were supposedly coming from God, but they wanted people to follow the rules, and so the stick that they held out for people was, okay, if you don't follow these rules, the devil will come and take you away after you die and take you to a horrible place called hell. And so it was just a means of controlling the masses. He said the devil does not exist, hell does not exist.
I couldn't agree more. It definitely is a modern construct in the history of humanity. We're coming up on a commercial break, and when we return, we're going to continue our very interesting discussion.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world, and if you are enjoying the programs here on Revolution Radio, please take a moment and go make a contribution at freedomslips.com. We rely on your support to continue bringing you all of these free programs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As well, if you're interested in the work that I am doing, you can find more about my work with the radio station, with YouTube, and other classes and seminars that I am doing either live or online at bernardalvarez.com. As well, I am also taking personal consulting sessions, so if you'd like to book an appointment, you can do so at bernardalvarez.com. Next week, we have a wonderful speaker joining us live from the United Kingdom, Adele O'Mahony. We're going to be discussing untangling the myth where science and spirituality meet. And that'll be next Tuesday here on Revolution Radio. Let's welcome back our guest today, Garnet Schulhauser. We have so much more and so little time to discuss so much information that you've gathered, Garnet, and I love how you've really expanded your I don't know how to say subject matter. I would say on Keep on Dancing, Dancing Forever with Spirit. Your second book, which just came out in March, and I love, because this was going to be my next question, and I'm picking up the book and I'm looking at it. What does Albert say about extraterrestrial life on other planets? And I see here you were able to have guided journeys with him to see some of these.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, in my first book, I did ask him the question: is there intelligent extraterrestrial life, in the universe? And he said, "Oh, absolutely." He said, "There's millions and millions of different life forms just in our galaxy alone." And of course, there's I read or heard on the TV the other day, there's something like 500 billion galaxies that we can observe, from Earth. So. Right. There's a lot of different planets, a lot of different life forms, and he said that, and many of the life forms are very much more advanced and more intellectually, capable than humans are, and we've been visited by a lot of these ETs, over the years, right from day one when we first were on this planet.
Oh yeah.
And he says that they are all the ones that have been visiting Earth are there to monitor and observe what's going on and to help us in subtle ways. And they're all very benevolent. There's no evil intentions anywhere. And so, in my second book, Albert took me, what I describe as a series of my sort of second encounters with Albert were a series of astral adventures that he took me on, and he actually took me to visit one of the ET spacecraft that is orbiting the planet, and this was a spacecraft filled with gray humanoid beings. They've been observing Earth and life on our planet, for eons. And they had, they're very benevolent. They're monitoring what we're doing. They try to help us in subtle ways by giving us, inspiration and sometimes technical know-how to help us make some leaps in technological advancements. But they're not allowed to directly interfere with what's going on, and so they can't destroy our weapons of mass destruction. They can't step in and stop the violence and the wars and the conflicts that happen on our planet. because they're not allowed to do so. So they have to sort of stand by helplessly, in a sense, and watch us as we kill and maim each other over the centuries in wars and other conflicts. And so,
right.
To them, it's been a bit exasperating, but they have a mandate that they have to fulfill, and they can't go past that. So anyway, they're there. People talk about UFOs. They're very real. That's just some of the glimpses that we see of some of their spacecraft. And someday, Albert says, they will make open, direct contact with humans and let the whole world know who they are and why they're here. But they've chosen not to do that right now because they don't think we're quite ready for it. But someday we will. So very definitely they exist, and they've been around for a long time.
Absolutely, and I can't help but feel that they've been allowing themselves to be known, but to individuals, not out to the whole countries or through the media or whatnot. But they seem to be connecting with so many people around the planet on an individual scale, which is, I guess, maybe their way of trying to make contact without. I guess being shown on CNN, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly right. They are making individual contacts with humans. They have been for a while. They've been picking up the pace. They've also been allowing themselves to be sighted, on radar or by people more and more often over the last number of years. It's their way of sort of easing humanity into the recognition that, guess what, humans? You're not sort of the only intelligent race in the universe. There are other races that are not only as intelligent, but much more intelligent, much more advanced than you. And they're doing this very slowly to sort of ease us into it so that they don't set off a bunch of panic and anxiety that would cause unnecessary harm and maybe riots and other things. And so they're trying to do it very gradually on their own timetable. But they are picking up the pace of that. And someday, hopefully in our lifetime, Bernard, they will actually make full and open direct contact with all humans.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I I was just wondering, did Albert mention anything as far as incarnating as one of these beings, incarnating in another on another planet or in another galaxy?
Oh, absolutely. I asked him that question, and he said, for sure, we're not restricted to incarnate as humans or incarnate as a life form on Earth. We can incarnate on other planets throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe, and we're free to choose that. And he said, in fact, many of us have already incarnated on other planets and other life forms before we became humans. And not only can we incarnate on other planets, we can also incarnate as animals on Earth. And basically, he said that animals have souls just like humans. And a lot of us have probably started our incarnations on Earth, incarnating into animals because it's a matter of sort of gently putting your feet in the water by incarnating into a more simple life form like an animal, because humans are very complex. So he said a lot of us start off with incarnating into animals, more simple life forms, gradually work our way up into humans, who all have very complex lives, as you know, and they're much more difficult to journey through in an incarnation. And so he said, yeah, we may have incarnated as animals already. Chances are, if we're already a human, we probably won't go back to be an animal on Earth because it wouldn't be enough of a challenge for us. But yeah, we have a lot of opportunity to incarnate in many different places into many different life forms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, did he share information with you on some of the greater personalities of human history, like Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha? Did he say anything about what we would call, an avatar type person?
Yeah, he said, well, yeah, he did mention, he said, Jesus and Moses and Muhammad and Buddha and some of the other people, he referred to them as masters, very advanced souls who came to Earth not because they had anything more to learn about an incarnation on Earth or to help their own evolution, because they were very evolved at that stage. They came here to help humans to get over some hump that they had in their spiritual evolution. And so these masters, they're the well-known ones, that they're famous and they're, we all know about them. He says there's a lot of other masters who have incarnated in the past who have lived in more obscurity, but we're working behind the scenes to sort of help humans become more spiritually enlightened. And there are masters living among us right now, actually, Bernard, that we're not really aware of, but they're doing the same thing. They're trying to help us, and they're really, and the pace of that help has really picked up lately because. As Albert says, and this was relayed to me by my visit to the Council of Wise Ones on the spirit side when Albert took me on one of my astral trips, and they said that humans are at a very crucial point in their development. They have developed very advanced technology, but their emotional and spiritual intelligence has not kept up. They let too many of their negative emotions run rampant, and that causes a lot of hurt and harm and wars and conflicts and murders and so on. And so we're at a point where we have to sort of get ourselves under control before we destroy our civilization with our weapons of mass destruction. And so they're really trying to do a full court press right now by sending messages through many different channels around the world. People like yourself who host radio shows, people who write books and blogs or speak at public gatherings, where they're trying to get the message from spirit out to as many people as they can, a message of love and hope and forgiveness, and the need for us to discard our negative emotions before we cause irreparable harm, to ourselves and to our civilization. So they're really trying to work through many different channels and through the masters who've incarnated here to help us get over this crucial hump that we're facing right now, so that we can move on to the next stage.
Absolutely, and actually, that was going to be a part of my next question about the time now we are in human history. How there seems to be this wonderful, I want to say sporadic but involuntary awakening happening with so many people around the planet, and we're seeing so much more of it now. But with that being said, there also seems to be how shall I say, the global elite seem to be digging in their heels as far as trying to control and oppress human consciousness and peace on the planet. Does he talk about any of that as far as humans allowing these folks to rule them, to govern them, and is there a lesson that we're supposed to learn from that, or are we moving away from that? What was there anything mentioned?
Well, they're trying to get humans to move away from that because the elite that rules our planet, they're basically they're running from their negative emotions, their greed, and their desire for power. And that's just part of one of the negative emotions that has caused us a lot of harm over the centuries. And so they really want us to sort of get past that. And to get past that, we have to have many more people become spiritually enlightened to realize that we need to get rid of these negative emotions, and we need to stop following people who are trying to lead us through negative emotions, and we need to sort of embrace love and compassion and forgiveness. And if we do that, and if we get a grassroots movement all over the world of people who are embracing love and compassion, eventually we're going to get rid of all the negative emotions from our leaders and from all the other people around us. So that's the ultimate goal, and they're really trying to help us get over this patch of rough road that we're in right now, so that we can take the next step up. The next step up, of course, as you know, Bernard, is to raise our vibrations so we can move up and ascend to Earth in a higher dimension, which a lot of people call the new Earth. So that's really where we want to go.
That's wonderful. That was going to be my next question. Are we on a path to some call it the new Earth, some call it the new paradigm or fifth dimensional awareness. So there is a planetary spiritual evolution going on.
Yeah, yes, there is, and it's all and it's happening at a different pace for everyone. Like it's not all one sort of unified movement, because different people are becoming spiritually enlightened at different paces. Some have no spiritual enlightenment whatsoever, so we're all over the map. And the ones who are spiritually enlightened have to continue their journey and help others around them. And but there is actually one of our astral trips. He did take me to visit the new Earth in a higher dimension, which is basically our planet just in a higher vibrational dimension. And the civilization there was wonderful. It was an amazing thing to see. I met with the descendants of a civilization that had originally lived in Central America on the old Earth, and they had managed to orchestrate a mass ascension eons ago to escape from a barbarian army that was encroaching on their territory. They made a mass ascension up to the new earth. So I met with these people. Very wonderful existence. There's no negative emotions. They live in harmony with their planet and with the other creatures on our planet. They don't eat animal flesh. They consume only plant material. And they live for several hundred years because they've learned how to slow the aging process and repair damaged tissue and repel disease. So it's a very idyllic world. They don't have to work. Everything's provided for them, and they're free to pursue wisdom and knowledge and enjoy the splendor of their planet. So that's the new earth in a higher dimension. Some humans have made the ascension already, as I mentioned, this civilization. Others, since then have made it, sometimes in groups, sometimes individually. But that's where we should all go, and we all have to sort of work hard at trying to get there.
Yes, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. That raising the vibration aspect, and that can be very tricky. Has Albert shared anything as far as tools that one can use? I myself have found that it's very easy to raise your vibration, but it's also very easy to fall back to a three-dimensional vibration consciousness. Is there anything that he mentions as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of things. First of all, the main way to raise your vibrations is to discard your negative emotions and fully embrace love and compassion. But that's, as you say, we can sort of, at some point in time, really fully embrace love and get rid of our negative emotions. But then sometimes we backslide and let our negative emotions sort of rear its ugly head again, and we backslide back down the vibrational scale. So it's really important for us to try to maintain our goal of just totally embracing love, because if you totally embrace love, there is no room for negative emotions, and that's really what we have to do. But it's not easily done. And the other thing you can do is in terms of helping yourself is to try to get in touch with your spirit guides, because they're always there 24/7 trying to coach you, help you on your path. And the real challenge is to be able to listen to what they're saying, and we can better listen to what they're saying through meditation. Try to quiet our minds, get rid of all the clutter of thoughts that we have going through our heads every day, and try to hear their messages. And so if we listen to what our guides are saying and try to focus on embracing love and compassion, that's sort of the best way to raise our vibrations. As I said, easier said than done. Difficult for humans to do that, but that's really what we have to do.
Yeah.
To get up higher on the vibrational ladder.
Yes, absolutely. Forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others is a great place to start as well. We've been programmed to have so much guilt and shame and fear and all the other things that we talked about earlier on the show. Garnet, your books are published through Ozark Mountain Publishing, which happens to be the same publishing company that Dolores Cannon. Did she start that publishing company?
Yeah, she started that publishing company in 1992.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it had been around for so long. My goodness.
Yeah, and she started it, as I understand, she started it to publish her own books, and she's written, I think it's now around 20 of her own books. She started. She was a past life hypnotherapist, as you know, and she wanted to write books about, and she did, about her many client disclosures. And so she started the publishing company to publish her books, and then she expanded to accept other authors. And I was fortunate to be one of the authors they've accepted. They published my first manuscript and my second, and they've now in the process of publishing my third book. But it's a wonderful company. Dolores Cannon was an amazing lady, super amount of energy. She passed away, unfortunately, last October, but of course she's still with us in spirit.
Of course.
But the company is carrying on, doing a wonderful job. They publish only spiritual and metaphysical books, and so it's really sort of right up up my alley. And I was very happy to sign on with them.
I couldn't agree more. What a great company to be working with if you're going to work with somebody else on these types of projects. And you were lucky enough to meet her before her passing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I met her. I communicated with her by email once my first publishing contract was signed, which was in December of 2011. My first book was published in September of 2012, and I actually got to meet Dolores personally at their transformation conference in July of 2013, where I was one of the speakers. They invited me down to be to speak at the conference, and I met her in person. It was very fortunate that I got at least one opportunity to meet her in person. As I said, she's an amazing person, full of energy and a very wise and mature soul who whose mission on earth was to try to enlighten all of us, and she did a very good job at it. And now that she's on the spirit side, I know that she's continuing her mission, but just in a different form.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, she's one of my heroes in all of this work. Absolutely. We're getting ready to wrap up the show, Garnet, and I want to thank you for joining us today. But before we go, I wonder if there's one crucial message that you feel Albert would want to tell all of our listeners, or to tell the world in general.
Yeah, and it may surprise you, but in terms of what it is, but what he really said to me was that he wanted everyone else to know is he said, look, don't take life so seriously. He said, you're on a journey of exploration. It's an adventure. You chose to come here. You're here to learn and experience things, and you can't go wrong or screw up, because no matter what you do, you always end up back on the spirit side. So he said, lighten up, laugh a lot, and enjoy your journey.
And those are very, very profound words, and I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. You have the name of your next book is what?
The name of my third book is Dance of Heavenly Bliss. And it's a sequel to the first two. It describes further astral adventures I had with my spirit guide Albert, and as I mentioned, it's due to be released sometime early in 2016.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And everyone, you can find out more information about our guest, Garnet Schulhauser, today at garnetschulhauser.com. That's GarnetSchulhauser.com. You can buy his books right there. And are you going to be speaking anywhere in the near future, Garnet?
Well, I have a number of other radio shows lined up, and I am going to be a speaker at the 2016 Transformation Conference in Arkansas, which will be in April of next year. So that's my next public engagement. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and everyone, we will see you next week. We love you. Have a wonderful, wonderful